Okay, I talked a little bit about Cumorah. Let's talk now for just a minute about the evidence of the Book of Mormon in Mesoamerica. When you look at the text of the Book of Mormon, it can be interpreted a variety of ways. Of course, when it says there's a land northward and a land southward, that doesn't give you a lot of guidance. The same with the seas. And one of the principles to consider is whether the Book of Mormon talks about the sea east or the sea west, is that a proper noun or is that a descriptive term? That's a key question to resolve. Another is the issue of the destruction at the time of Christ's death in 3rd Nephi. The scholars tend to think that the text is describing volcanic activity. And I think the reason they do that is to explain the Central American geography. So again, it's circular reasoning. They figure because they assume the Book of Mormon took place in Central America, therefore, and because there's so many volcanoes in Central America, therefore, when the text talks about destruction, it had to be referring to volcanoes. The problem is the text never mentions volcanoes. It doesn't mention lava, doesn't mention mountains exploding, doesn't mention really anything having to do with volcanoes. And it turns out that the disruption that the text does talk about with water, cities being submerged and flooded, and the darkness and the tornadoes or the whirlwinds that cause them, all those things are explainable by looking at the central United States, particularly along the Mississippi and Ohio River valleys. And in fact, there was actually an earthquake, the strongest earthquake that's ever hit the North American continent was in 1811-1812 near New Madrid, Missouri, and the people who were living there at the time described the conditions, and it's what they describe is what the Book of Mormon describes. So even when you look at the text of the Book of Mormon, there's no requirement to find a place that has volcanoes. In fact, because Mormon never mentioned the volcanoes, it's less likely that those events in 3rd Nephi took place in an area where there are volcanoes. Aside from that, just think about the idea of 1,000 years of history in Central America, and there's not one mention of a volcano. That just seems unlikely and implausible. So there's other correspondences that the scholars have come up with. For example, they have decided that when the Book of Mormon talks about a tall tower that people could go up on top of and look and see different lands, that has to refer to these enormous stone pyramids in Central America. Of course, the text itself never refers to pyramids, which is a little surprising if they were living in that area. The text never talks about people building buildings out of stone at all, for that matter. The only thing it mentions is that they built a wall out of stone, but they did build buildings out of wood, King Noah's palace being a perfect example of that. So I just think when you read the text of the Book of Mormon, read it with an open mind. Don't read it through a filter trying to see a particular geography. Just see what the text says. And once you sort that out, not retranslating it, not adding your own spin to it, just what does the text say, then we can look for a geography that matches with it. Always keeping in mind that the open door is a new door. You have to start there.